Here we go. In three, two, one. Welcome back to Bardo's Breakdown. I'm your host, Stephen Bardo. This is a special one for me. This gentleman, if you look up the word class in the dictionary, Billy McKinney's picture is right there. Billy, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, and I would say the same thing about you, Stephen.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, for you younger Big Ten viewers, Billy's name may not resonate with you, but he's one of the better players that has graced the hardwoods of the Big Ten Conference. He's a star, a former star at Northwestern. He is the mayor of his hometown, Zion, Illinois, and we'll get into all that throughout this interview. But Billy, take us back to your time growing up in Zion and how you got involved in sports and how it was a springboard to get you to Northwestern.
That's a great question, Stephen. I had three older brothers that pushed me into sports very early. A couple of them, one of my brothers was a really good bowler. The other two were really good in football, basketball, and baseball. And my brother that was really good in basketball was about 6'5".
Okay.
And he used to get me out on the playground when I was in kindergarten and forced me to practice, and I hated the game. I didn't like playing. And then we moved from North Chicago to Zion after my parents were divorced in 1962. And about fourth grade, all of a sudden, I start enjoying basketball. And I played multiple sports growing up. In high school, I played football, basketball, baseball, also ran cross country.
Wow. Okay.
And all of a sudden in fourth grade, I started playing a lot and just enjoyed the game. And we had great playground hoops in Zion growing up in the Park District. And some of the older guys that I played with every day, much better, much stronger. So I took a lot of whoopings when I was younger. And that went on through about seventh and eighth grade. And during that time, I wasn't a good shooter. I couldn't shoot. I could pass, I could dribble, I could defend, but I could not shoot. And my freshman year in high school, things started to change a little bit. I still couldn't shoot. And all of a sudden, after my freshman year, my high school coach, Warren Nicholas, gave me a book. How about this? Not a YouTube video, but a book, the Bill Sharman book on
Oh, yeah.
shooting.
Yep.
And he said, take this home, read this book, and start practicing. And between my freshman and sophomore year, that's all I did. And all of a sudden, I come back sophomore year, and I'm a better shooter. And I could do the other things. And what people don't realize is I was a much better defender, noted as a much better defender in high school than scorer.
Okay.
But my love for the game started to grow just through playing, and it was so competitive here. We had a great tradition of high school sports here, and I got to play against the older players. And again, took a lot of butt whoopings. We used to barnstorm. We used to go to other communities, Waukegan, North Chicago, where their programs were much more advanced and competitive. And we'd go down there and play, and we got our lessons. But through those lessons, you started to learn how to compete. You learn how to get better. And that's what happened. And even after, I think my junior year, is really when my career started to blossom.
Okay.
I was put up on the varsity team as a sophomore for a short time, and they put me back down on the sophomore team, said I wasn't ready. And then my junior year, I started, and things started to really change. And in spite of that, after really two good varsity seasons, I wasn't highly recruited. There
Oh,
were
see, that's what I was going to ask you. Who did you have a choice to go to school to? But you weren't highly recruited.
I was not. My backcourt mate by the name of Brian Colbert, a year younger, went to Wisconsin, decided to go to Wisconsin. He was recruited by UCLA, Notre Dame, everybody. He
Wow.
was he was the first player in the history of our school to ever play varsity all 4 years.
Okay.
He's my backcourt mate, and I credit him and our friendship of over 50 years of helping me to become a better player, because we never competed against each other, but we made each other better. I knew if I wasn't working out on the other side of town, which I was, he would be. And that fueled my motivation to keep working. But the schools that really were interested in me were Cal State Fullerton, Eastern Illinois, and Stout State, which is now University of Wisconsin Stout.
Okay. Okay.
Rice University also had some interest in me, and so did Cornell, Ivy League school. But all the rest of the schools that I really wanted to attend, like I wanted to go to Illinois, Notre Dame, Marquette, DePaul, all the powers around here, everybody said you're too small and not good enough.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was more impetus for me to keep working and show people that, it's not the size of the dog, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah,
so, Billy, you must have been really good academically in high school to be able to get into Northwestern. Was that a focus for you?
it absolutely was. I grew up in a family, Stephen. My mother raised 6 children on a sixth grade education in a single parent home.
Wow.
And she always told us the importance of education. And my mom she worked hard. She worked 3 jobs, man.
Mm.
And she always said, get your education. And if the grades weren't right, you couldn't watch TV. If the grades weren't right, you couldn't play sports. And my coaches supported that through high school. And our high school coach, Mo Tharp, if you got a C, he wouldn't let you practice.
Wow.
Wouldn't
Okay.
let you practice until that grade got up to you want to be. So I was an honor roll student in high school as part of the National Honor Society, and
Wow.
so that helped me. It was one of those things that you learned the importance of getting an education and what it could do for you later from a social mobility and mobile financial mobility. And
Wow.
I understood the importance of that, and also understanding that at 6 feet tall, that if my career ended, what do you do?
Right.
You had to
That's
have a
right.
backup. It wasn't a guarantee that I was going to be finish high school as a player. What if you got hurt in a car accident? If you
Mhm.
went to college, what if you got injured? You weren't good enough. And the same thing with the NBA. So my focus was always the long game. What would happen to me after my career was over? And thinking about even if I played in the NBA, if you played 10 years back in those days, the salaries weren't worth it, what they are now.
Sure.
I worked in the offseason my first 4 years in the
Th
offseason.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't unusual then, was it, Billy?
Oh, no, for baseball, football, basketball, most players, if you weren't getting paid, I mean, the minimum salary at my rookie was $35,000.
Wow.
The
That was
average
the minimum salary for a rookie?
minimum salary, and I was a free agent. I came in as a free agent.
Okay. Okay.
So at that time, that seemed like a lot of money. But I said, even if I was hugely successful and played 10 years, what do you do after that?
That's right.
You're in
Yeah.
your early 30s. You're not going to sit around and watch soap operas your entire life. You're going to want some focus, something to do that occupies your mind and that's meaningful. So
Mhm.
I always prepared for life after sports, not knowing how long my career would last.
I love that. I love that. So let's transition to your time at Northwestern. Um, it I don't know that a lot of people may or may not know this. You got your jersey retired as one of the premier players that has ever put on a Northwestern jersey. What was the key to your success, Billy, being the crazed hummingbird that you were nicknamed, and at 6 foot tall, but being a dominant player at Northwestern inside the Big Ten Conference?
Stephen, my jersey was the first jersey in the history of the school to ever be retired in any sport. Quite an honor
Oh, in any sport, Billy? I
in
didn't
any
know that.
sport. And
Wow.
so, excuse me,
It's okay. Take your time.
when I think about the significance of that still,
That's huge.
uh, and where I started,
Mm.
I still get emotional about it.
As you should.
Those things don't happen by accident. And when you talk about my nickname, the crazed hummingbird, an Italian fan gave me that name in the NBA because that's how I played.
Okay.
I played with a lot of passion. I played hard. I played every possession on both ends of the floor as if it was going to be my last.
Mhm.
And that's how I played the game. I wanted to look back at my career when it was over and not have any regrets. And you've heard players you've played with, played against, that will talk to you now and say, Stephen, I have one regret. I wish I would have done X, Y, or Z when I was a player.
Yep.
And as a player, I left it all out there.
I love that.
Every night. Uh, my freshman year, I was the first recruited Tex winner, the legendary Tex winner.
Yep.
It was the first year that freshmen could play in the NBA, in college.
Mm-hmm.
They could start. And so being his first recruit, I thought, wow, I have a chance to go to a great university and become a starter. And I wasn't even considered at that time the best recruit in the class of 5 players that were recruited.
Okay.
And my mentality was going in, that's okay. I'm going to earn my spot, and I'm going to show the coaches exactly who I am each and every day in practice. You might have a bigger name, better reputation to me, but we're going to have a knockdown drag out. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to prove to you that I am capable of playing in this league, in the Big Ten, which was fabulous back then, and one of the best conferences in the United States now and then.
Yep.
And so I had an uphill battle, but by my 3rd game as a freshman, I was starting. And I can recall our first game was against Ohio U. They had a player named Walter Luckett, 4th pick in the draft by the Detroit Pistons. He graced the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
The Ohio Bobcats, we played them on the road, and it became a fierce rivalry between us. And then we go to Ohio U, and it was the first time, Stephen, that I hadn't started in 4 years. All through high school, I was a starter.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep.
And so you go to college, and all of a sudden, your first game, you're sitting on the bench, and I'm thinking, this is really strange. But I said to myself at the time, you can pout, or you can be ready to play when the coach calls you in.
Oh, wait, hold on. Hold that thought, Billy. You younger viewers, listen to this. If you have any aspirations of playing basketball or being in team sports, please repeat that again, Billy.
You have to be ready to play when your number is called. If you're on the bench and you're not starting a game, I've seen players, they have meltdowns.
Yep.
I'm not starting, I haven't started. What do I do? Well, you can fold, or it fueled my competitiveness and I think anger that I wasn't starting because I'd played well in practice, that when I got on the floor, I was going to show the coaches why I should be starting. So first game, I get in the game, I score 16 points, and we win the game on the road against a ranked team, Ohio U.
Wow.
My second game, I didn't start. We played Rollins College back at Northwestern. The third game, we played Notre Dame at home, and I started against Notre Dame. Adrian Dantley, John Shoemate, Flowers. They Dice Martin, who was one of the best defensive players in the country, Ray Martin, Dice Clay. They were stacked. And I scored 23 points against Notre Dame, and the rest was history. I never came off the bench again. But young players, again, you can help your team whether you're starting or not.
That's right.
And you never get up. There's a young player on Northwestern's team right now that came in last year from Denver, and his name is escaping me right now, but he's one of the most,
Justin Mullins.
Justin Mullins, thank you. One of the most talented players in that program. And I think it was a culture shock for him not playing. And I would always tell him, Justin, be ready.
Yep.
And when your number is called, go out there and play angry.
Yes. Like your hair is on fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. And every game, that's how I played at every level. And I enjoyed it. And I always said to myself, Stephen, when I got to the point that I couldn't give that effort anymore, I would step away from the game.
I love that.
If I'm not giving 110%, and that applies to anything that I'm doing in life. I'm the mayor now. I was an executive in the NBA for over 30 plus years. And I always said, when my time comes, if I don't have that passion and fire for it, I won't fool people. I'll
Mhm.
step aside and let somebody else come in. And I did that my last year as a player when I was with the Bulls.
Okay. I love that. And Billy, let me get back to your Northwestern time in terms of the academics were as strong then as they are now. How are
Man,
you able to balance being such a prolific player on the court and be a prolific student in the classroom? How are you able to balance that?
fear of failure.
Mm,
That has dominated my life. I
mm,
People say there's a fear of success. And the fear of success is once you have a certain level of success, you have to maintain that level. I've never been afraid of that. The fear of failure has dominated my life. And that's why when I went to the classroom, I was intimidated. You
mm.
go to Northwestern, and most of the kids I went to school with had gone to prep school. And back in those days, you didn't want to have the image of the dumb job.
That's right. That's right.
And going in my first year, I got to tell you, I struggled. I struggled because you go from high school to college where pretty much everything after that, you got to learn to study on your own.
That's
You
right.
don't have people pushing you to do it like they do now. And I am so thankful now that each and every NCAA institution has tutors for their players.
Yep.
They have academic advisors that these players can utilize to stay on top of their schoolwork and feel confident talking to these people about the areas of opportunities of growth that they have educationally. We didn't have that. You
Mm,
sank or you swam. And I knew I wasn't gonna sink.
mhm,
And so I started to associate with people that in my class that would study with me.
mm.
And then you had to have that discipline to study on the road. We didn't have computers. We didn't have laptops. We didn't have phones. You had to find those library books
Yep.
and go to places and make sure you got your work done. And I played two sports in college.
You
I
did?
played baseball too.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, Billy.
Yeah, yeah.
How many seasons did you play?
I played my first 2 seasons, and I was the
Wow.
first African American player to ever start on Northwestern's
Are you
baseball
kidding
team. I
me?
was only the second African American player to ever play baseball at Northwestern at that time.
Wow. What
So
position did you play, Billy?
I was center field, and I was a hell of a pitcher in high school, but my college coach wouldn't let me pitch. And that goes back to that time in the 70s when, think about this, during that civil rights
Mm,
era,
mhm.
you didn't see a lot of black quarterbacks.
Right.
Pitchers, you didn't see a lot of black pitchers. And I was a lefty. So I had that advantage, but my coach would not let me pitch. So I played center field.
Wow. That I wonder why that is not more publicized about your background. I was not aware that you were starting center fielder.
Yeah. I,
Uh,
I, I hit close to 300 for 2 years, and I'd always come out to the season a month late because baseball season, spring practice started right around the time basketball season was finishing. So when I got out, the players were already working out. And when you played teams in the South, they already had 30 games under their belt.
yep.
But I love baseball, and some of my close friends from high school would tell you that was my best sport.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I can imagine you were a pitcher's nightmare once you got on base. You probably were quite good at stealing bases.
Yeah, yeah, and that didn't come from any stealing when I was a young kid either. I had good foot speed. I had very good foot speed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh man, that's great.
yeah.
Was there a game on the basketball side back at Northwestern that you can remember as probably your best game for whatever reason, whether you scored a lot, whether you all won? Was there a game that kind of sticks out in your memory back at Northwestern?
Man, there are a couple of games, and I can say the one game that sticks out the most to me was when my senior year we beat Michigan and they were ranked number 2 in the country. And my rival there, my arch rival, Ricky Green, who I have a lot of
Oh
respect
yeah.
for, a
Yes.
hell of a player.
Yes.
That guy was so fast, so quick, and so difficult to guard. That was the standard by which I judge myself as a player. competing against Ricky in those great Michigan teams. You know, Michigan and Indiana ruled the Big Ten. They were number 1 and 2 in the conference, always in the NCAA tournament. And the reason that game stands out to me because we played at Michigan 2 months before in January, and they beat us 102-65.
Ooh,
And
okay.
it was the most embarrassing loss I can ever remember being associated with.
Mm.
And I hated losing. I hated losing. I hated being embarrassed. And when we played at Michigan that night, they beat us so bad the fans were laughing at us.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
you know, as a competitor, young people, you always have pride in your whatever entity you're working with, whether it's your school. And for me, whether we won or lost, I had pride in putting on that purple and white uniform every night. And I got to tell you, Stephen, I couldn't wait to the rematch.
I could tell.
I couldn't wait. And everyone says, well, Michigan's just going to roll over Northwestern again. They're rated number 2 in the country. And we end up beating them 99-87.
You put 99 points on them in Northwestern?
Yeah.
Wow.
Excuse me. It was, yeah.
How many points
I had 29.
You gave Ricky 29 points.
And he had 15 that game.
Oh, wow.
And it was so bad, you know, our fans wouldn't come out to the games until they heard that Northwestern was leading at halftime. And I had 8 points at halftime. And then the second half, Tex Winter lit into me about my play. And then I always like that when the coaches lit you up because for me, it was okay. I'm going to show you, coach. I'm not going to pout.
Yep.
If you think I'm not playing the way I should, you need to light me up. And so I had 21 that game and we ended up winning. And that game is still talked about to this day. But it was based on that lopsided loss that we had and the pain and the anger I felt with losing that bad and being embarrassed, being laughed at. I never liked that. And at that time, of course, you know, our program was struggling to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But yet every night I went out, I believed we had a chance to win. And that's how I played.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, man. I'm going to go back and look up that game because Ricky Green, for those of you who don't know, Ricky Green was an outstanding guard. As quick as he could very well easily play in today's NBA with his speed and quickness.
No, and on both ends of the floor. I was thinking about that because I had a feeling you'd ask me about a particular game. This guy had such great defensive reactions. He could show you a passing lane and take it away like that. He could change directions. He could, you know, they say stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change. That was Ricky. And he had this speed like a running back. And I know this is a running back that's not popular anymore. O.J. Simpson, who could go from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. That was Ricky.
Yep.
And I love the way that guy competed. And they had great teams. So I always measured my performances kind of against his when we played. And he was an All-American. He was first team All Big Ten. And Michigan was absolutely fantastic at that time. But I had a lot of respect for how he played the game. And then he ended up having a 14, 15-year NBA career.
Yep. Outstanding career.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Billy was the all-time leading scorer at Northwestern for 35 years until John Scherner eclipsed his mark. And you see the teams that he played with: Kansas City, Utah, Denver, San Diego, and Chicago. What was the process like for you, Billy, in terms of leaving Northwestern and getting the chance to play in the NBA? Were you drafted? Did you come in as a free agent? How did that process work out?
I was drafted. How about this? At that time in 1977, they had 10 rounds in the draft. I was drafted in the 6th round.
Okay.
I was the 101st player picked.
Okay.
So I got cut my first year. I got drafted by a very good Phoenix Suns team. Paul Westphal, Don Boosie, Truck Robinson, Alvin Adams.
Was Greyhound on that team? Walter Davis?
Walter Davis. We were in the same draft class. Mike Brack from Stanford, Alvin Scott from Oral Roberts, Great draft class, great team. I got cut, so I came back to Chicago, had a job at a large printing company, an offer with WF Hall Printing Company, the third largest printing company in the world. That was my setup from college.
Okay.
That if things didn't work out, I had a job lined up. So I went through the sales management training program, played in the AAU games, probably 2 or 3 games a night after work.
Wow.
And then the president of the company comes to me one day, says, we're getting these rave reviews about how you're doing in this business, but I've watched you play college basketball for 4 years. You shouldn't give up on basketball so easily. He said, so I'm going to make you a deal. He said, if you can get a tryout with a team, I'll give you a paid leave of absence. If you don't make it, you got your job back.
Wow.
If you make it, you can work with us in the offseason. So I got a tryout with the Kansas City Kings, who had a full roster of guards, including Lucius Allen from UCLA, a vet, Otis Birdsong, John Kuster, and they drafted the Rookie of the Year that same year, Phil Ford from North Carolina. So I had 9 players to go through to make a roster. And when the Kings invited me, Frank Hamlin called me, said, we're bringing you down for tryout camp. He says, it's a long shot for you. I said, Coach, just help me find an apartment. And he kind of chuckled. He said, all our guys say that. And I said, this is for me. I had trained really hard that whole time, understanding what it took to make a roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is it. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to make this roster. I ended up making the roster, beating out another first-round choice, Mike Evans from Kansas State.
Oh, yeah, I remember Mike Evans. Yep.
Late in the first round. And I ended up playing 20 minutes a game as a rookie on the Midwest winners, the Kansas City Kings, behind Phil Ford, who was a Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
And then I never looked back after that. 2 years later, I became a starter with the Denver Nuggets. From being a free agent to becoming a starter, and starting, I want to say, a quarter of the games that I played in the NBA as a free agent player back in that time when there's no D-League. There's not a 15-man roster.
That's right.
There's 12 roster spots. You either make it or go home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. So I love that, the competition of being able to do that. And I'm really incredibly proud of the career that I had, in spite of people saying you'd never make it.
Yeah.
Never make it. The pro scout said the same thing. He's too small. He shoots. He can't do this. And then when I got to the Kings, they found out, damn, this guy can defend. So they would have me defending some nights. I can remember defending some of the shooting guards in the league. And they thought, well, we can post them up. And I was quick. I could jump. And I would deny people position. Defense is knowing what your man's tendencies are, the scouting report, and pushing him, as you know, Steve, if a guy is a good 12-foot shooter, make him a 15-foot shooter.
That's right. Take him out of his comfort zone.
Exactly. And that's what I had to do to survive. I mean, I'm guarding Magic Johnson, dude. And so, people say, well, how'd you do that? I said, picked him up 94 feet like I did everybody else. Because if I let Magic run at me, you look at the highlights of Magic, you get a run at anybody. If I can run at you, I'm going to score on you. So I had to pick Magic up in the backcourt. I love those challenges. It was so exhilarating to be able to do that night in and night out. Tiny Archibald, man, that guy led the league in scoring and assists. I had to guard. I mean, I look at the guards I had to guard night in and night out. Calvin Murphy. I mean, it was murderer's row.
Led the country in scoring out of Niagara, didn't he?
Yeah, at 5'9". And Calvin was one of pound for pound, inch for inch, one of the toughest players to ever play in the NBA.
Wow.
Yeah, you did not want to tangle with Murph. He knocked out a couple 6'9" guys that got in fights with him.
Are you serious?
I'm John Brown and Sidney Wicks.
Oh, I remember Sidney Wicks. He knocked out.
Yeah.
Sidney Wicks.
Oh yeah, Murph would hit you so fast you didn't even boom boom. Oh yeah, so Murph was tough, and you had to be tough back then. I think about how the game has changed, and you've seen it.
Yep.
When I got in the game, because I was so effective as a player, teams would change their offense to post you up. We got to take him in the post. We got to work him. Now, small guys can just run around at will.
Yep.
You don't have to play the defense. You had to in order to play in that game, in that league back then, you better be able to defend somebody. Not only your player, but usually teams would run their offense so that they would have a mismatch. So you'd be on a bigger player. So you had to be physically tough, mentally tough to be able to play in that league at that time.
And so, Billy, you made a smooth transition. It seemed. Now, I may be incorrect in this, but it seems like from the playing side to the front office side, front office with the Bulls, Bucks, Timberwolves, Pistons, Sonics, and Seattle Storm. You mentioned it earlier, 30-year career in NBA front offices. Was it a smooth transition from playing into the front office?
It was, and here's why. There was a gentleman that worked with the Chicago Bulls named Jerry Krause. Jerry wasn't, as you can see, even with the Last Dance and all the events in Chicago, he wasn't very popular. But Jerry scouted me in baseball all through high school. And young people hear this. You're visible now. People are watching you. They're watching your Facebook posts, your Snapchat. They're watching everything. They're looking for character or character flaws.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do 10 years, what you have done 10 years in your past can haunt you 10 years later.
That's right.
Trust me. Jerry watched me play high school football. I mean, man, I'm sounding crazy now.
Now you're
baseball as a baseball prospect. Watching me all through college when he was a baseball scout. He also got into basketball scouting with Phoenix. Used to show up at the Northwestern practices to pick Tex Winter's brain. So he's watching me evolve from a 14, 15-year-old baseball prospect into a basketball prospect and into a person. And when he took the job as the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, the first person he called was Tex Winter. Tex, will you come be a coach? The second person he called was me. Do you want to come back and play for the Chicago Bulls? I said, I was working at that time. I had actually taken a year off from playing and was working. I said, Jerry, I got a great job. The only way I would leave that job is if I had a career in coaching or management after my career was over. He said, that's what we have in mind for you. Whether you play 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, when your career ends, you'll move into the front office or on the bench as a coach.
Wow. And he kept his word.
And that's what happened.
Wow.
That's what happened. So I moved in. I helped build those initial championship teams by drafting Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. Those two were the building blocks around Michael, having played with Michael, that helped that team move forward into a championship caliber team. From that, because of my efforts in Chicago, I was offered the director of player personnel general manager job with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay.
An expansion team at 32 years old. Crazy.
That's powerful.
Crazy.
Yeah. So as you have from your playing career, Billy, in the NBA, your front office experience over 30 years, what's been like, you've seen the evolution of the game like nobody else. How would you grade today's NBA in terms of health wise, the strength of the league and the international feel of it and all that? What are your general thoughts on the NBA right now?
I'm going to tell you this right now. Look, just think about this, Stephen. Look at the last 4 MVPs in the league.
Yep.
European players.
And throw Embiid in there as well, right?
Exactly.
Yep. From the Congo. Yep.
While our players have this great talent in the United States, have been playing this game for years, maybe they've lost focus of what it means to be really great, to be the best. Another barometer. Look at the Olympics. I can recall I got invited to the 1976 Olympic tryouts. That's why I missed baseball season my junior year. Our college players beat the international team's pro players. That can't happen now.
Right. That's
So
right.
those other countries are catching up. Their passion for the game has changed and surpassed what it's meant for us.
I would
It's
agree
their
with
way now out of poverty in some of those countries, where that was our way out in a lot of ways.
that. Mm.
See, I never played the game. I started watching the NBA game when I was about 5 or 6 years old. Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, those matchups. I love watching those games, man. It inspired me to play. But what inspired me about it, Stephen, was I thought that's what I want to do when I grow up, but I want to have a platform when I do that to be able to change parts of the world. I saw athletes, entertainers, people that have these great followings have this great opportunity to change the outlook on the world. At that time, growing up in the civil rights era, I said, man, I got a chance to help eradicate racism, the negative stereotypes that Black people have
Hmm.
through being an athlete, but mindful of what that means of what you do within your community. So I was always very community minded, high school, college, the pros. Even though I was a professional athlete, being out in the community kept me in touch of the bigger picture of what that profession and that job meant. And that's one of the things now I think that's been lost a little bit, the image when I look at the NBA. And
I would
and
agree.
it's changed. When we went to games, we went to games in suits and ties. You wanted to look like a professional.
Hmm.
That has changed. And people say, "Oh, you're old school." I understand that. But it meant something then that you presented yourself in a way that would negate the stereotypes that were put on professional athletes.
Yep.
They usually weren't great stereotype. You're dumb, you're poor, you're illiterate.
Hmm.
And those things for me always stayed at the forefront of my mind, whatever level I was at. And however, and we talk about this, Stephen, how you present yourself means something, not only to you, but to the people that surround you and watch you night in and night out. And I've told you this. You always dress sharp. I said, if I didn't know Stephen Bardo, I said, man, he comes in a suit looking cleaner than the Board of Health. I said, if I didn't know you, I said, I don't know who he is, but he's somebody
Mm.
by
I
the way
appreciate
you
that.
carry yourself. Those are the things that provide opportunities for you well past your playing career.
That's true.
Now, you can be a great player. You look at, I look at guys like Shaq and Michael, LeBron, those and Kobe. Those guys are the exception.
That's right. They're not the rule. That's exactly right.
When you talk about market magic, when you're talking about marketability and to be able to promote products and make millions doing that, you have to have what I call the it factor. Those
Mhm.
guys got it. Not
Great point.
everybody has it. So most of us have to find different ways to to the word I'm looking for is to impress people and to open up different opportunities for us. And it's by how you present yourself. That's so crucial.
So well said. So very well said. Now, we as you go through your NBA career, 30-year front office career, all of a sudden you have an interest in getting into politics. And ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with the mayor. This is the mayor of his hometown, Zion, Illinois. How did you figure out your path to get into politics, Billy?
You know, there's an expression. There's two things I said I'd never do in life: move back to my hometown, not because it wasn't a great place. I love growing up here, and get into politics. But there's this other expression I heard that they say, if you want to make God laugh, make plans.
That's true. I've heard that as well.
So I'm an executive with the Bucks. I'm the vice president of scouting. I happen to be living back in Zion. My mom passed away. I took over the family home. I renovated it with the thought of selling it. And I said, this is 50 years. This is her legacy. She bought a home when I was 7 years old, when she was a divorced mom of 6 children, didn't move us into an apartment, bought a home, provided us a great environment to live. I couldn't sell it. So I lived in the house.
Mm.
And coming back here and driving 50 miles to Milwaukee, I was on the school board for a year. And then the current mayor at that time, Al Hill, said to me, why don't you get into being I'm going to run for mayor and I'd like you to take my commissioner seat. And I said, Al, I don't do politics. Just like that. Don't do it. He sent a friend of mine 3 times. He said, sit down and have dinner with me and let's talk about this. And he said, Billy, the 3rd time when we finally had dinner, he said, Billy, you're looking at politics the wrong way. He said, politics is the people's business. You've been in that your whole life. I've watched you from the time you were in high school. You'd be ideal for this. And I said, okay, I've got an open mind. I said, I'll give it a try. His commissioner seat was open for 2 years. I'd have to run again. So I said, I'll give it 2 years. I was the commissioner of building, property, and zoning. And I got into that position, Stephen, and I saw that was the way to turn the city around from the real estate standpoint, the way the city looked. The housing market had tanked because of the nuclear plant that had closed here in 1998. Property taxes had gone up 146%. Those property taxes now went on to the businesses and the residents. People lost homes. And I started saying, when I came back here, I said, this is not the Zion I knew. The town wasn't as clean, as pristine as I remember. And being in the building department, we control that. We start changing the ordinances. We start asking, demanding, and putting in policies and ordinances to make sure that the landlords that come in and buy properties took care of them. People need, regardless of what your economic situation is, people need safe, clean homes to live in.
That's
And
right.
I saw that, and we started to change that. And slowly but surely, I'll tell you this, when I took over as mayor, only 40% of the people in Zion own their homes. 60% were rental properties. 5 years later, it's 60% home ownership, 40% rentals. In healthy communities, it's 27 to 33% rental properties. You put a home on the market here in Zion now, it's gone. The town has changed. The housing market is strong. We've cut down crime. And when you cut down crime and you have home ownership, people have pride in their community.
That's right.
And it offers more safety. So you go from there, 2 years of that. I said, I'm kind of enjoying this. I'll run for another 2 more years. I had to learn how to run a campaign. So I campaigned again, won my commissioner's term for the 2nd time. And then after 4 years, Al Hill, the mayor before me, decides to quit. He just said, I'm a 1-term mayor. I'm not doing this anymore. And I said, the seat's open. And I was 99% sure that I would not run at the time. I said, I'm not getting into this. Because it's like being a general manager. It's constant criticism.
I bet.
Yeah,
Can't please everybody, I bet.
can't please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on a trip. It was a trip. It's called the ICSC. It's a retail strategies conference where you go out to Las Vegas and you meet all these different people that are involved with companies. So I went out with our city administrator, Dave Nabel, and our economic development director, Sonalita Bronson. And it was there that I learned people are saying, why don't we have Starbucks in town? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? and then you learn there's a process to it. These companies are looking at your demographics, the health of your community, the diversity in community, and deciding do they want to be there or not. And it was then those 4 or 5 days with them that I said, this is it. I've got
Mm.
good people. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. So I did, and won 65% of the vote my first time around. I was reelected last year and won 82% of the vote.
Wow. Wow. That
And
sounds like a record.
I've been enjoying it. It's been really the most rewarding thing I've done in my life. Well, look back at all my career, Steve, and I've had great things happen. I
Mhm.
look at my NBA career. I was a role player. I knew what I was. You understand that? There's a place for the role player.
Yep.
You make things happen. On every team that I played on in the NBA, my teams valued my contribution. I lifted them up during tough times. That crazed hummingbird situation, the way I played every night when we didn't have energy, I helped provide it. I have to talk about this. I still own the rookie record for most consecutive shots made in a game without a miss for a rookie.
Mm.
14 for 14 against the Boston Celtics.
You hit them for 28 points?
30.
Oh, you hit them for 30?
30 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists in 24 minutes off the bench.
That's still an NBA record.
A rookie record.
A rookie record. I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Who
That was
who did you torch that night from the Celtics?
It was JoJo White, Tiny Archibald. Yeah.
Oh
It,
man, JoJo
and
White was one. Like when I was a shorty, he was a guy that my dad told me to watch.
yeah,
Just the way that he played, man. You gave
JoJo
those.
was
You
JoJo
tor-
was smooth,
yeah, he was. Yes, he
but
was. But Tiny
JoJo,
Nate Archibald is one of the best players the NBA's ever
oh my
seen.
God, that was my role model growing up. That he had a photo on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he's driving by Rick Adelman, looked like he had elbowed him in the head. That poster was on my closet door all through college. And
Mm.
people called me, they called me Tiny sometimes. I remember playing against Michigan, and Campy Russell called me, she said, Tiny Archibald. And I was so flattered by that. And so playing against Tiny, I know you had to be ready to play.
Yep. Oh man, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What is this? What are the similarities of being a mayor to your experience in sports?
It's about getting people to be on the same page. It's all about communication and teamwork and unity. The difference is on a basketball team, you have 12 players, 15 now, or a football team, you've got 50 players. Baseball is 25. But in a community, ours, 25,000 people, you're trying to get everybody to row in the same direction to ensure that you have the kind of community you want. So I think a lot of it is leading by example. One of the things I'm really proud of, one of our residents saw me one day. There was an abandoned house near my home, and I was out mowing the yard of this house. And the guy says, Mayor, why are you out here doing it? I said, well, we have a crew that does this, but they're short staffed right now. This is my neighborhood. I want my neighborhood to look a certain way.
That's right.
And so instead of saying, how come the city doesn't do it? They ought to, our city staff has been short staffed for years. So I get out and do the things that are necessary to keep my neighborhood looking the way I want it to look. That's not the city's responsibility. To some degree, picking up the garbage, keeping the streets clean, keeping us safe, yes. But when it comes to trash days and there's trash on the street, go pick it up.
That's
Don't
right.
call a city employee.
Yep.
So I do those things, and people see me doing that stuff. I'm walking my dog, and I keep a bag with me. I'm picking up trash along the way that has probably floated out from the garbage or recycling.
I love that.
Cleaning the drains out when they're stuffed up with pop bottles or grass. You don't wait for somebody to do that to improve that. And that's what I was taught as a young person from my mom.
I love
So
that.
all those family values and those sports values, they are relatable to what I'm doing now, what I've done as a general manager, and now what I'm doing as mayor. It's being out, being visible, and showing people you care about the community. But you've got 5 city council members and 25,000 people. Now, if you get 10% of those people to help you with these tasks, 30 minutes a month, your city looks pristine. So sometimes you just got to lead by example, which I'm not afraid to do. You know, Mayor, you shouldn't be doing that. Why? My title doesn't mean I can't pick up garbage.
That's right.
Uh, uh, you
That's
know,
gotta be that's gotta be inspiring to the residents as well, Billy. It's gotta be.
well, you know, it's how I've lived. You know, I can remember one time as a general manager with the Detroit Pistons, we had so many injuries. I was 38 years old. We couldn't sign another player. I had to suit up and practice with the team
As the GM,
as the GM.
that's incredible.
We couldn't. I was still in pretty good shape at that time, but not the shape that I was in when I was 32 years old.
Sure.
But it's about not waiting for somebody else to do it or to volunteer. And I would never ask one of our residents to do something or one of our players to do something that I wouldn't do. See, to me, that's a different kind of leadership. You know, you can get the kind of leadership where you say, "Hey, go do this." I never have looked at myself as the boss of anybody. We work together. And if we work together, we can have a great team, whether it's in your community or it's on the court.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And we're wrapping up. We're on right now with former Northwestern great and mayor of Zion, Illinois, Billy McKinney. Billy, how much satisfaction or fun do you get with being the voice of Northwestern radio?
Man, I'm having a blast. And it's really interesting. People, because I've spent 40 years in the NBA, they say, you got to watch the NBA. I haven't watched an NBA game since I retired 7 years ago.
Mm,
But watching the college game now is much more fun because these young men bring it now, and these young ladies that are playing the game, they bring it.
they do.
They have the passion for the game. Uh, you know, one of the things I think that's been really great about the college game is they've gotten away from the zone defenses. People have to cover. See, in the NBA, when I was playing, you didn't have all the zones and tricks.
That's
You
right.
played man to man. You know that.
Yep.
You had to stop somebody.
That's right.
The defensive concepts that you had only worked if you contained your man, right?
Yep.
And so the NBA had gotten away from that a little bit. Right now, it's an entertaining game. The players are so gifted athletically, but I think the players have lost the vision of what it means to be a true pro.
Mm,
With the money that's being made now, and everybody wants to have their own podcast and their own show, man, focus on what's happening between those lines.
yep. Because everything comes from that.
Everything comes from that.
That's right.
And so now when I watch the college game, how hard these players play, how much parity there is in the college game now. You used to have the big conferences, the Big Ten, the Pac-10 or the Pac-8, the Pac-10, whatever they called it at the time, the SEC. Now, Butler all of a sudden, Gonzaga. You've got to play against these mid-majors teams because good players are going to those schools.
That's right.
And so you can't come out and say, "Man, we're playing Rollins College tonight. We can take it easy." You better. The game of basketball is every night you got to come out and compete. So watching Northwestern's program right now, how it's evolved, is what I thought it would be when I was there.
Mm,
That was my goal, to take Northwestern out of obscurity and to make them a program that's relevant. So to be a part of that every night is so much fun, to watch the success of these young players, what they're doing, to be able to travel with them, learn about them, seeing what they're doing academically, man. it's a great change of pace for me after a day of dealing with all of my mayoral duties. And I feel again privileged and honored to be able to do that every night. And I'm working along one of the best in the business, Dave Innett.
Yes.
Dave and I lived in the same dorm. So
Back
I've
in
known him
Northwestern.
at Northwestern. I've known him
Wow.
since I've known him for a long time.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's so great. And the Big Ten is so fun to watch now. Here's my concern about college game right now. The NIL, and I'm glad players are getting paid, but you're also getting paid to go to school. I looked at that when I got a full ride to go to school. My travel was free, my food was free. I worked during college as well to earn a little extra money. Players don't have to do that now with NIL. However, now where's the loyalty? Somebody makes you a bigger deal and you get to leave. You just walk away.
Good point.
That's never been part of my DNA, and I'm gonna tell you why, Stephen. After my freshman year, I had a really good freshman year. I averaged 16 points a game as a freshman in the Big Ten. No 3-point line, no Big Ten tournament. That summer, all of a sudden, teams wanted me to come to their basketball camps. Man, I love going speaking at camps. But it was with the intent of recruiting me away from Northwestern. And my thought process at the time was very simple. And I asked this question internally, not to them. Where were you my senior year? When I needed a scholarship, when I needed some interest. Northwestern and Rich Falk was at my door and they recruited me. I'm staying there for 4 years. Here's the other part of that. When you transfer to all these different schools, who do you claim as a school?
Right. Yes.
Would you go back? What kind of relationships do you build? Stephen, look at the relationships you have with your former players in the university.
Yep. That's true.
That pride of wearing that Illini uniform that I see hanging in the background right now, you was a bad man.
You're right.
Still are.
Great point. That loyalty is lost.
Well, what are my allegiances to? Right now, man, that purple and white, you see where it is in my house.
That's right. Yep.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that loyalty. And people say, yeah, you're a fool. You go for the money. I'm sorry. I've never been mercenary in my approach to life. Those things will come to you. So that's a part of it. And I say this too. If you're going to be able to walk away from school and walk away from your scholarship, I say, okay, this is like the NBA now. Why not have trades? When you're not performing, I can get rid of you.
Well, that's a very good point. If you're not performing,
because that's what it is. Because now guys say, well, I'm not playing. One of the coaches not playing. And this gets back to our point we were talking about earlier. Be ready to play when your time is called, instead of pouting and saying, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else.
Yep.
Because you don't know. You might go somewhere else and it could be the same thing.
You can't.
You don't lose that year of eligibility as you did when we were in school if you transferred. So that concerns me about the game, the NIL and the transfer portal.
I got you.
It's becoming much like the pro game now. And so I think where it's good for the players in terms of the great thing about it, players get some financial stability. If they're not good enough to play in the NBA or overseas, they decide not to go overseas. They've got a nice financial base to start life out with it, which is great. But the other part of it for me, that's just my mentality. And you learn something in life. Not everybody thinks the way you do or approaches life the way you do. But I like the fact that I stayed, I finished the dance. I left the dance with the woman I went to the dance with.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand now why I was so excited to get Billy McKinney on here on Bardo's Breakdown. I wasn't aware of some of the things that he shared in this interview. And so, Billy, I can't thank you enough. Continue being the standard that we all try to follow. And thank you for joining us on Bardo's Breakdown today.
Man, thank you for having me, Stephen. I say this, I say this with all sincerity. I know we joke around a lot, but I have so much respect for you. What you've done with your life and your career and how you conduct yourself. You know, if I said this, if I had a children, if I had a son, I'd want him to be like you. I think you're just an awesome man. You represent well. And I tell you that every time I see you, because we don't hear that enough as men.
I agree.
We don't talk to each other enough about the positive. Sometimes we see another person that has success and we're trying to tear them down. Take some time to appreciate that person this man's opening doors for you. I know think about this, Stephen. And I don't mean to be long, but I guess I'm a politician, You ask me the time and I'm going to bill you Big Ben. But I know that I was the first African-American of my generation to step into the front office.
That's huge.
Okay?
That's huge.
I was the first African-American executive in the Chicago Bulls history. So what's happening now in sports where you're seeing it more? I followed the path of a guy like Wayne Embry.
Yep.
Al Attles, who just passed away, who was a terrific mentor to me. Mm-hmm. You have to pass that on and understand that people are watching and they're looking at how you perform because it's going to impact people, men of color, in the future as they look for positions.
That's right.
So we have a bigger responsibility with the positions that we hold, and we can never forget that.
No, that's so well said, Billy. And I know you're being sincere when you say that, and I really, really appreciate your words. And ladies and gentlemen, he tells me this almost every time we see each other at Northwestern, and he's not playing. So it's been an honor to have you on Bardo's Breakdown. And anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome. Thank you so much, Billy. I appreciate you.
All right, as they say, peace out.
Hey, man, that was. Hold on, let me stop the recording.